Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Down in the Valley podcast. My name is Edson Ochoa. Accompanying me, as always, my co-host and good friend, Jacob Young. Jacob, how you doing?
Doing fantastic. Looking forward to talking some soccer. Yeah, they weren't the best results, but either way, it's still fun to inform everybody about this team and still looking forward to talking about it because, yes, as much as there's some downside to a couple of losses, there's still some upside in the end.
And of course, we do want to apologize for this episode being a little bit late, but you'll understand why in a couple of seconds. So, Jacob and I, we went on our own different. We went on our own to Austin, but we actually went to the same place on Sunday, which was at the NASCAR Cup Series race at Circuit of the Americas, and it was pretty fun. You know, I took my sister. It wasn't my first NASCAR race. I went to last year's COTA, which was a complete shit show with the rain. But this year, you know, the weather actually was a lot more favorable for the entertainment. Took my sister for her first time to seeing a NASCAR race. Definitely had a lot of fun, you know, out there cheering. I was out there cheering the Penske boys and, of course, Trackhouse Racing with Daniel Suarez. And, you know, just seeing Trackhouse with Ross Chastain winning their first NASCAR Cup Series win ever is just, and being there in person to see history being made is just amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, I could talk about this all day, all night, basically about the whole weekend, because yeah, it's fantastic for Ross Chastain. You take a look at 24 hours before that, Ross Chastain in the lead in the Xfinity Series in the 92 car, having an opportunity to win and gets taken out at turn one,
Mm-hmm.
and had no chance of winning because it was just too little, too late in that sense. And so he he saw that in the Xfinity Series, came over to the Cup Series using that same mentality, and saw that he got pushed out of the way a lap before, and does the same exact thing to the person in front. Yeah, a little bit more aggressive, but what are you going to do about it? It's for your first win, and it's against a driver who's not even full time in the Cup Series. So,
And
yeah.
not only that, you know, if you're gonna get pushed, if you're gonna do the push and run, you have to make sure that you run and not stay within the
Mhm.
distance that the guy you pushed catches back up and pushes you out of the way. You know, it's
Yeah.
aggressive driving that is fun for the fans. You know, I was out there, you know, kind of like almost biting my nails at the last lap, and I honestly lost my voice after the race. You know, from all the cheering. It's a very fun experience. If you guys are fans of motorsports, you guys should check it out. You should check out a NASCAR race at Circuit of the Americas. Before we talk about the South Texas Derby, I know you guys are probably wondering why the hell are we talking about NASCAR and the Down in the Valley podcast. Just so you know. But first, I do want to talk about a little about the game against LA Galaxy 2 that happened on Wednesday, right? So we know about last weekend, last Saturday, we lost against Orange County SC. Then you run into this particular issue that we talked about last week, and that was, where is our depth, right? You at that moment, you did not know if Emilio Wicasa was going, his red card was going to be challenged, or his double yellow was going to be challenged. You lost way to injury against Orange County SC. You lost Tyler Derrick before that game. You don't have Adolfo Hernandez, who I don't know where the hell he is, because the Toros definitely aren't going to tell you, you know, what's going on with him. You know, who's Eric Pimentel is out for an injury. Juan Jose Francisco Torres, El Gringo Torres, is out for an injury, and who else? Who else am I missing? Another. Oh, Juan David Cabezas is also out. Hasn't been disclosed whether he's injured or not. But knowing how in this club, if you don't play, especially in these circumstances where you need to rotate the squad, you're not out there, it's pretty much safe to say that these players are injured. Although I don't know about Adolfo. I know based on his Instagram story, he made the trip to California, but yet he didn't even come out onto the bench. Which leads you to believe there might be an issue, something with his paperwork, as why he still isn't eligible. But the point I'm trying to make is that because of all of this, the roster was pretty reduced going into this LA Galaxy 2 game midweek, and then having to play a couple days later against San Antonio FC back at home. So pretty difficult situation for RGVFC.
Oh, for sure. Yep. It's frustrating with the depth that's in. Of course, yeah, you mentioned a lot of it, but like for the most part, RGVFC, and I'm glad that Wilmer Cabrera did what he did at the start of the season, which is to bring in a lot of guys, because if not, well, we wouldn't have this depth. And so we're lucky enough to have it. The only issue is it's just more on the defensive side than when you go back to the attackers, those players are, well, they're hurt. Again, yes, Juan David Cabezas is not one of the attackers, but he can really be a good playmaker. We haven't seen Gringo Torres really on the field that much. And of course, a couple of players we're still waiting on. I'm blanking on his name, but the man who most likely broke his toe, if we're not.
Ollie Wright.
Ollie Wright, yeah. So, there's something of that. Of course, it's only going to take time, and hopefully everybody gets back. That, of course, that's the upside, is what we're kind of talking about, is yes, there are injuries, but they're expected to return here fairly soon.
And so going into that match, because of the situation, you definitely were not surprised at the fact that a lot of the midfielders and attackers a lot of the midfielders and attackers repeated in this game against LA Galaxy 2. Why? Let's take a look at the midfield. Officially, in the midfield for the Toros, Juan David Cabezas, Isidro Martinez, Emilio Icaza, Jose Torres, El Gringo Torres, and Juan Torres. You've got Emilio out before the official announcement where they rescinded that double yellow. But you had Emilio out, and you have Juan David Cabezas out, and you have El Gringo Torres out. What was going to happen if the disciplinary committee did not rescind that double yellow on Emilio Icaza? We would only have two midfielders to use. Now you look at the forwards. Frank Lopez, okay, who's been playing. Ollie Wright, who's injured. Duilio Herrera, the 19-year-old. Or 17-year-old, excuse me. Dylan Borjak, who's been playing. You know what's also interesting? Where's Adolfo Hernandez in this roster? Why is it? Are you telling me that paperwork didn't make it through? Is it an issue with the visa? Is there something going on why he isn't officially on the RGVFC roster at this moment? Is this why we can't have him? We haven't seen him at all, even though he's not injured from what we see on his Instagram stories. Is it an issue with paperwork as to why we can't have Adolfo Hernandez as a substitute for Frank Lopez? Because let's be honest, Frank Lopez has played every game as a striker, and especially so early in the season. Now you have a double header week, and it's got to be very fatiguing, tiresome for Frank to deal with all of that by himself, as well as Dylan Borjak.
It's just one of those situations where, I mean, we don't know. We don't know what could happen if we don't have that man. Of course, Borjak is a must, and of course, if he gets hurt, I think this team, it's over. And if Wilmer can't sign anybody because he's already broken the cap, And there's a major, major issue with the team because he's at the moment the one that looks like the best player out there on the field. And that's saying a lot.
So when you look at the lineup for this game against the Galaxy 2, Colin Miller on goal because no Tyler Derrick, Luka Milicevic because Jonathan Ricketts played against Orange County SC. If I'm not mistaken, he was the starter in that game. Then you have Stefan Mueller playing as a left back position in place of Robert Coronado. You've had Jesus Vasquez, the captain, who continues to play. Then you, because of the injury by Wahab Akwe, you had Frank Nadars, I think it said his name is Frank Nadars, playing as a center back alongside Vasquez. Then you had the line of three with Isidro Martinez, who's been playing all the minutes, since the beginning of the season. Juan Pablo Torres as well, and Emilio Icaza, who was announced by Disco, like as I mentioned, that his yellow card, his double yellow card, was rescinded with with enough reason to rescind it. It was Emilio Casa had nothing to do with that play for that yellow. That was Juan Pablo Torres, and he ended up getting the yellow. That was just dumb refereeing. So good job by USL Disco for now. And then up on top, you've got Frank Lopez. You don't have any other strikers to rotate. Ricky Reese. You don't have any other wingers to rotate. And the one you rotate with Dylan Borjak, you end up rotating him with Duilio Herrera, the 17-year-old. That pretty much putting him into the ring of fire, against Los Dos. And you look at the bench, you only have five players, including Wahab Akwe, who was nursing that injury that he had against Orange County SC, which led me to believe that maybe Nathan or Wahab Akwe's injury may not be as bad as it looked, but still enough to not make him 100% comfortable to get some minutes and start. But other than that, you had Javier Garcia, the keeper, Wahab Akwe, who was injured, Robert Coronado, Daniel Luis, the other center back, and Dylan Borjak, just five. That's worrisome. So what's going on? Why is everybody getting injured?
Yeah. I mean, I can't answer that question, Edson, of why everybody's getting injured. Something does need to change. If it is training, if it is something along the lines of that, something does need to change in that area. But besides that part, it's definitely tough seeing the worry on the depth because again, we go back to it. Borjak is a bench warmer, but he comes onto the field and plays great. If that man gets hurt when he gets onto the field, we're down to four, including the keeper who's always going to be on the bench. So really, we're down to three field players at least. Until Tyler Derrick comes back, it's still going to be three field players, but it is very, very just we're not in the best part. But going back on the roster, I think Icaza should have had that yellow card kept. I think it was totally his fault. He magically was there all of a sudden. He was in two places at once, and that's why they called the foul in the first place. He was in two places at once. I think Disco did a bad job.
Well, I think that should have been a fine on RGVFC for fielding 12 players at the same time, if that's the case. It's voodoo magic, I tell you. Voodoo magic.
Exactly.
But if it's not in the rules, you can't do anything about it. You got to think about these loopholes, guys. But being in all seriousness, man, I understand it's the early part of the season, but it still worrisome because it's the early part of the season. We've had so many injuries that it's not only the number of injuries, guys. It's who is getting injured. The experienced players. The players that can tell the young guys, okay, I need you to do this. I need you to be over here. Do this. Don't do this. That's going to lead that team when things start going against the team. We don't have them. Just Jesus Vasquez and pretty much Frank Lopez up on top.
Mhm.
Because other than that, everybody seems to be in what, at most, what, 3 years experience, as a professional. So hopefully we can get these players back. But going into the game against LA Galaxy 2, it's just I knew, at least speaking for myself, I knew it was going to be very difficult. Couple that, you're going up against a team you've never beat in the history of your
Yeah.
club. You've never beat LA Galaxy 2. Things were just going against for RGV. But um, RGV had the closest opportunities. You had Ricky Reese hitting the post in the first half. Um, I think what I liked about RGVFC is one of the keys that I mentioned in my preview article for the Striker Texas. I mentioned that the defensive line needed to take a close look at Preston Judd and don't give him space out in the open and don't give him opportunities to get a ball comfortably inside the box. And that's exactly what they did. They limited the amount of opportunities that Preston Judd had with the ball. In fact, I think he only touched the ball a couple of times and he looked desperate. And you limited LA Galaxy to uh, almost nothing, of as far as clear chances that you felt like, oh, this is the danger of being a goal. Sure, they had some. They had some shots on target. I think in total they only had 3 shots on target in all 90 minutes, and everything else they had 12 shots in total, so 9 shots off target, which means they didn't have it. They either don't have the talent to get some shots on target, or the defense, the way I saw it, I feel like the defense, for the most part, they kind of did not give them enough space to be comfortable and get themselves a shot on target. But maybe I'm just being too optimistic. I don't know.
No, I mean, I think the defense for RGVFC did a fantastic job in that match. For the time being, especially when it was 0-0, Edson, and it really did help RGVFC out to get comfortable and have an opportunity to get those close chances and to get shots on target if possible. Of course, a couple of those not necessarily being on target, but when they were able to, they looked like a fantastic team inside of an empty LA Galaxy 1 stadium, but LA Galaxy 2 playing there. So it was, it, all in all, in my opinion, it was good for parts on the defensive side. But of course, when that happens, your offense needs to step up and put it behind the net so that your defense doesn't have to be working 2 times as hard.
Hmm. Now, in the first couple of minutes, it's really, really seemed to me that the defense was shaky. They made some bad passes. There was a couple of times where Jesus Vasquez kind of looked shaky, looked nervous, and made some mistakes that cost a transition for LA Galaxy 2, but they were able to contain. Um, and it all seemed like it was working well. Obviously, offensively, the Toros still lacked. They only had 2 shots in on total. The shot from Ricky that hit the post, and there was another blocked shot that Ricky Reese had. Other than that, RGVFC really didn't have any clear opportunities
Yep.
on the goal. You know,
Yep.
but at least they had the 0, right, to build up into the second half. But right before the halftime whistle, there was a very controversial play which the referee calls a handball on Jesus Vasquez and calls the penalty.
Hmm.
Now, The problem is, I can't tell you if it was the right decision or the wrong decision because the camera angle that the USL had, that they were reviewing the play on the broadcast, was from the other side of the stadium, and you've got a bunch of bodies in between the camera and the play. So you didn't really see anything. You didn't really see if Jesus Vasquez had his had his hand on the side of his body, like he was arguing with the ref, or if it was an intentional, attempt to blocking the ball with his ball. There really, from the fan perspective, there really wasn't a lot of evidence to prove that the referee made an incorrect decision in my eyes.
No, I agree. At that time, I was making a couple of picks with the San Antonio FC roundtable for their UIL playoffs that was coming up that next day. But either way, it didn't. It was tough to tell from the replay as well. Just like you said, I had it on my second monitor as I was doing that, and it was, it was a frustrating couple of minutes for sure. But shout out to Colin Miller. I know we're about to get into that.
Mm-hmm.
Colin Miller being able to make that first save on the penalty. In my opinion, he should have made the save, got back up, and stayed where he was instead of trying to go forward and trying to stop the ball. That's in my eyes. Of course, I'm not a keeper. I'm not anything like that. His instinct was probably still good, but in that sense, maybe just slightly, he might have had just a tiny bit more of a chance to maybe get that save. But that second ball was also a really good ball played into the back of the net for LA Galaxy 2.
I think for me, the I'm looking at the play right now, and it's one thing I did not notice while I was watching the game. So Taylor Davila, who's the guy that scores the goal. If you pay attention to where he is before Preston Judd takes the penalty, and I agree with you with Colin Miller and the fact that he made an amazing save. I still think that when you play as a keeper and you've got a penalty, it's all about reactions. It's not really about like, okay, unless it's a soft shot, you're at the mercy of the rebound of the ball, right? So the point is your job is to deflect the ball away from the goal, which he did. Everything else, what happens after, that all depends on your defense. But if you guys are listening, take a look at the highlights and take a look at this at the play. So Preston Judd, or before Preston Judd kicks the ball for the penalty, Taylor Davila, he's roaming around the outside of the box. Like he's not even, you know how usually players, they'll stand like right on the line and just stand and wait for the penalty to be shot so they can dart right in. He's roaming. He's walking. He's walking towards the side, kind of towards the sideline as the penalty is about to be kicked. Nobody's guarding him. Nobody's watching him. You have two players at the edge of the box as well. Nobody's guarding anybody because, at least one person. So you've got two players guarding one attacker. And Taylor Davila's just roaming, right? You continue the play. As Preston Judd kicks the ball, as he's making his run towards kicking the ball, Taylor Davila's already running towards the inside of the box. But he timed it so perfectly that he's got momentum in his run so that by the time Preston makes contact with the ball, he already has momentum and he's in a position where they're not going to call the goal back, right? Because he didn't cross into the box. And because he already has an advantage to that ball, he gets there first before the defenders, who the only thing they can do is react, because they never realized that behind them, Taylor Davila was roaming and making the run towards the inside of the box. That's a that's where I think experienced players can notice that and make, you know, the necessary movements to avoid those kind of surprises. So to me, the biggest culprit was the defense that wasn't aware of their surroundings and reacting instead of being proactive in that particular play.
And I 100% agree. I just, watched that play over again, and it is true. You see him. You see him run right outside with no mark whatsoever. That's going to be a goal 9 times out of 10. That's how you get scored on set pieces too. Is not being able to mark your guy, especially when they move. Just like on, I mean, yeah, it's still a good example is on American football when they send a man in motion and he ends up not being marked, beats his corner, all of a sudden wide open, deep throw, QB makes a perfect pass. He's most likely going to go 90 yards for a score if they're, backed up that far. So it's that same exact way. Fantastic job by LA Galaxy 2 to make RGVFC forget that they're defending somebody. But yeah, that's something that I bet you was talked on later in the week when RGVFC had to get back home, because that's a big flaw.
And in your analogy of American football, right? It's Am I correct in saying that 9 times out of 10, whenever there's a man in motion, there's somebody that is assigned to that specific player to follow him?
Oh, for sure. Just about every time. Just about.
The difference is that in American football, you've got him right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
This time it's behind you. But makes it very crucial for you to be aware of your surroundings and of your peripheral vision to see that if there's anybody that you have to mark, especially when you've got two players on one. Why do you have two players on one going into a penalty? Yep. It just makes no sense to me. But then again, I'm not a professional player. I'm just a couch potato. So, but that's just my analysis, and then that's my opinion on this matter. Yep. In halftime, when they were coming in back for the second half, Wilmer Cabrera decides to take out Duilio Herrera and bring in Dylan Borjak. With Dylan Borjak on board, RGV looked a whole lot better offensively. They started making a whole lot more plays. They started to break down LA Galaxy's 2's defense. The problem was that last touch. That last touch was just lacking. There were many opportunities where just that last minute decision of, okay, I know there was one, I think it wasn't in the, let me try to get that. It was in the, I think it 70, no. It was like at the 55th minute. The one where he's 1-to-1 against his defender, right? In that juke, this defender falls down, so he's going head to head towards the keeper. And I don't know if he was trying to shoot towards the far post or if he was actually, trying to pass that ball over to Frank Lopez, right in front of goal. In the end, it was neither of those. It was too far away for Frank, but it was also too far away from actually going into the direction of the goal. And the DOSL actually has it going that ball actually ended up going out of play at the sideline. So it wasn't even a goal kick in that play, but Dylan Borjak brought in that spark to the offense, but it just wasn't enough to get some, clear shots on frame. I mean, Emilio Icaza, I know he had like one, and then even Dylan Borjak as well later on in the half, like around the 80th minute. But it's just surprisingly, Eric Lopez, who's the young goalkeeper from LA Galaxy 2, he did an outstanding job making the necessary saves or at least closing down the angles to avoid any clear danger on his goal. Shots on target for the Toros in total, only two. One from Emilio Icaza and the other one from Dylan Borshak. And that's it.
Yeah, not to mention the one that was actually scored on but called back, too. Because RGVFC did score a goal, but it got called back.
Well, man, I don't even remember that one.
RGVFC did have a opportunity, and they did put it in the back of the net. I was watching, of course, I didn't hear what the announcers were saying or what the referee was saying because I had it on mute. But I do recall a ball going into the back of the net, RGVFC celebrating for a second, and then all of a sudden the referee's like, nope, no goal. And that would have been a tie, and that would have been a point on the road, and my prediction would have been correct.
Did they call, what was it? Did they call an offside, or do you remember exactly what they why they called it back?
I think it was because of a foul. But it did not look like a foul at all. It really looked like a regular play, and it should have gone into the back of the net. Harry might be able to give some insight afterwards, but it's that, yeah, it should have been a goal. It should have counted, to be exact.
Yeah. So in the end, that was all that RGV could muster against LA Galaxy 2. That is now what was it, like 12th or the 11th game in a row that RGV cannot beat LA Galaxy 2 since its inception. After that, it was one of those things where, I wasn't expecting a lot from the South Texas Derby, to be honest. We knew that the players were going to be fatigued. We knew that San Antonio was coming in on a better run than RGVFC. I was talking on Friday. I was talking to Harry. When I was recording with him for the San Antonio soccer roundtable. Talking about the South Texas Derby that was to come up. And I frankly told him, I honestly think that San Antonio is going to win it. Because if you look at all of their lines right now, San Antonio looks better defensively. They have experience in the midfield. They have experience on goal. And they have experience up on top. They have depth. They have talent. Overall, San Antonio is the better team. And couple that with the fatigue, I wasn't expecting a win, not even a draw, if I'm going to be honest. What were you expecting, Jacob?
Yeah, I was kind of like you. I wasn't expecting too much. I was hoping for a draw, but that's really about it. And I know I was hoping for it. I kind of expected like you a loss. I'm not gonna lie. But I wanted to keep a little bit of a positive mindset coming into it. Just in hopes that, well, RGVSC, they could have done better at LA Galaxy too. They're gonna be a little bit tired. That's how I felt. I really did feel like that coming into it. So it wasn't all terrible. And then, of course, I get distracted by USA versus Panama, the NASCAR race, everything happening on Sunday. So, yeah, coming into that, I was a little, distracted, but at the same time, still in that side mind thinking, well, just hope that we can muster up a point, get something going after a couple of games where it was a little bit of bad luck more than good luck.
So even San Antonio coming into this game, they had a couple of injuries, including, I know I'm going to be flamed for this by a lot of people, but my favorite San Antonio player, PC, was out for an injury because he's just so crucial and so influential for San Antonio FC. Last season, without PC, without Victor Gyro, San Antonio just couldn't get results in their favor. Once PC came back, San Antonio started going on that winning streak and started playing much better, looked more organized. He brings in that fight, he brings in that passion to the midfield. Yeah, it cost us a couple of yellows for dissent to the referees, but I mean, all of that passion he instills in it, like it just becomes uh, uh what's the word I'm looking for? It's contagious to the rest of his squad, right? So he was going to be out. Deshane Beckford, former Toro, was going to be out. Santi Patino, the striker, also going to be out. Kekuta Mane and Mohamed Abu were all going to be out. 5, reported injuries. But yet, even with that, just look at the squad that San Antonio had. They had Bonilla and, Colombian youth national team player, Mitchell Tainter, Garcia, Carter Manley, Gomez, Traore. I believe he's the one that was brought in from France. You've got Connor Maloney, Ates Diouf, the former Bold player. You've got Loera. You've got Collier, and you've got Justin Dillon. I was about to call him Austin Dillon again. Oh my god! But even with all of those injuries, look at what starting lineup they bring out, right? Because they have the depth and they have, they don't have to go through this whole rebuild once again, and having to build a squad at the last minute, you know.
Yep.
So
Yeah, it's it's one of those situations where just San Antonio FC coming into the match, just like you said, they were well organized. They were a well organized squad, and all that was a big plus to that squad, except for all the injuries. And it is true they don't have to go through this almost every single year. Now I understand why RGVFC had to go through it this year because
and
Juan
I do
Cabrera,
too. Mm-hmm.
yeah, it wasn't his team last year, last minute, so he wants to get more players in. And so all of that becomes a bigger plus, especially when we saw from that first match of the season how well they were able to get in sync with each other. Of course, that was before a couple more players got injured and all of that fun stuff. So yes, San Antonio FC coming into that game looked like the better team and looked like they were going to be, just they were going to be dominant on the possession and other things like that. And they were.
They weren't necessarily dominant in possession. They only had like 33% possession. What they were dominant is their positioning on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, RGVFC had a couple of opportunities that made Bonilla work for it in the first half, and like in the first 20 minutes of the first half. But after those 20 minutes, it was all San Antonio. San Antonio with the high pressure. And I'm talking about not necessarily like high pressure to, you know, just to with one person. I'm talking about, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but San Antonio, what they were doing is that they were forcing RGV to go out on the wings. And when the ball went out towards the wing, he had 4 or 5 players like right in the vicinity of where that ball was. When the RGV player would receive the ball from the pass, you've got a player right on his back already, not allowing him to turn around and try to or try to maintain possession of the ball, find somebody to pass it to. They didn't have time to move. Everything had to be quickly. And right now, RGV still isn't up to sync with that. They lost a lot of balls. The both goals that San Antonio scored were balls lost in transition caused by that high pressure from San Antonio FC. Now also, it appeared that San Antonio was playing butcher because they were butchering the Toros. with the amount of fouls that they committed against RGVFC. I think in total it was like 19 fouls against San Antonio FC. That's ridiculous. And a lot of them, I know there were a couple that should have been yellows, and they didn't mark them as yellows. Now, first goal. I talked about the high pressure, right?
Yep.
So in the first goal, that ball was ours from a free kick on our end, but we had possession of the ball, right? The ball gets sent over to Daniel Luis, the Cuban center back. You had, I think it might have been, it could have been, I think it was Maloney, if I'm not mistaken, who goes and pressures Daniel Luis. But Luis, seeing the pressure of the San Antonio player come up to him, instead of passing the ball quickly towards Coronado or even sending that ball out to the other side, clearing the ball, he tries to dribble the ball past the San Antonio attacker, loses the ball. There's controversy there if that was actually a foul or not. To me, it was a foul. But as you know, I don't like to talk about referees and say, "Oh, we lost because of the referee," which is why I'm not focusing on the referee's decision on that. My focus is, why are we losing the ball in transition like that when you could, when you know you're not the most nimble player, you know you're not the most technical player. Clear it out. Don't put yourself as bait, or like don't fire yourself in the trap of losing the ball when you're in transition. Right? They lose the ball. Juan Pablo Torres is slow to react, right? And it's Dylan. Was it? I think it was Dylan that dribbles the ball into the box. You leave Jesus Vasquez dealing with two players. Dylan coming in and Collier, that's going to be receiving, the pass that's there to support, Dylan. So he's confused. Okay, so who do I mark, right? Do I go towards the person who has the ball, but I leave Collier wide open, right? So he notices that, and he makes that turn. I don't know if you notice this. He makes kind of that turn, left hand turn, to try to come back to where Collier is. But by that time, the ball was already passed to Collier, and he shoots it inside of the net. Now, I know there were some comments saying, "Oh, well, what the hell is Colin Miller doing?" Well, Colin Miller, he is going to be reducing the space. He's going to be reducing the angle of shot for the attacker coming in. Try to intercept that ball. Try to do something, right? So to me, it's not a mistake from Colin Miller. To me, it's more of a mistake, and not even a mistake. It's more of the fact that you're in a 2v1 situation, who do I go? It's a quick decision thinking, right? But it was done a little bit too late to where the fact that you look like a fool. You're not a fool, but because of the timing, you look like a fool. But it was what you should have done. You should have done the right thing. If you're seeing that your goalkeeper is already dedicated to blocking the angle, what you need to do is you got to cover the guy coming in and try to get that pass. Had he done that decision to go back towards Collier maybe a second earlier, he would have not been as free to just tap the ball into the net, right? Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of timing. But it all comes back from that horrible decision of dribbling rather than playing it safe and clearing that ball away from danger.
I agree. Um, yeah, but of course there will always be the other facts that say the statistics, the statistics. Wow, the statistics show that you're better off playing it out of your own end, no matter what the deal is. I would have rather seen, just like you said, them send it past midfield so to avoid the first goal. Considering not to mention that you had a big old scare 12 minutes into the game where you almost get scored on that way, and Colin Miller has to come up huge. So Colin Miller already came up huge. Why can't the defense come up big and, I don't know, clear it again? Just clear it out of your own end. It's not that difficult to do. You hit it past midfield or near midfield, it's going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
But yet they did not do that for the first goal, and we can go on and on about it. How just, keeping it in your own end and stuff. Yes, of course, there may have been a foul, but some can also argue he kicked it. He put his stud right between his leg and got the ball cleanly. That's what you can kind of tell off the replay too. Which is crazy to think that you could still do that and come away clean. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and yes, Colin Miller can come up. Some argue, just like you said, he might have had a better chance to save it if he stays back. But again, this dude's already made one good save. Why not let him come up, try to block off
Mm-hmm.
the angle, just like you said, and try it that way? Because if it doesn't work, oh well. But in the end, it was all a missed play. It was all a missed opportunity from the start of that whole situation. You just don't lose the ball, and that's very, 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 very frustrating to me to talk about. Just yeah.
And before we go on to the goal by RGV, this is
Uh-huh.
why they always tell you always play the ball until the referee blows his whistle.
Mm-hmm.
Why did the RGV Toros hesitate to recuperate that ball after he got
Mm-hmm.
dispossessed? Everybody thought that there was going to be a foul.
Yeah, but no.
Because yeah, but guess what? Uh, Dylan, he didn't care. He went for that ball, and by the time everybody realized, oh, he didn't call a foul. Oh shit, let me go.
Yeah.
He's already making his way towards the goal. You gotta play until the referee says otherwise, and that's why it's just a snowball of errors that are accumulating, and it's all concentration errors. Man, I really thought that we'd be behind this, and it just keeps on happening. But towards the positive, right? Before the before the before the half ended,
Mm-hmm.
RGVFC were able to get an equalizer back. Beautiful cross by Isidro Martinez towards Dylan Borjak, who, gets a diving header to deflect the ball to the far post. Impossible to save for Christian, was it Bonilla? It was just beautiful. The best part was Dylan Borjak did it in between two defenders, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, well, I actually told my sister while I was listening, because I was listening to that. I wasn't watching, I was listening and with that play. But I told my sister, this is good motivation for RGVFC to have gotten an equalizer before the half ended. And so everything was all fine and dandy. It was a beautiful play. All right, let's just take it. Let's just take it to at halftime, and then at halftime we'll have some more opportunities, to try to get the go-ahead goal or something like that.
Yep.
But no.
No, what was it? 44 plus
Yeah,
around there.
yeah. It was only like less than a minute after, less than a minute after the confetti finally settled on the ground from that goal,
Mm-hmm.
and San Antonio was back up again. Once again, a lack of concentration. This time by Ricky Ruiz. But it's all because of that high pressure, you know, because Ricky, he receives the ball within his own half.
Yep.
And the left back from San Antonio makes that run all the way to, that part of the field to make that dispossession. You know, any other player, any other defense are like, okay, we'll let him receive. They're still in their first half. They're far away from goal. Let him receive. Let him turn around, and I'll stop him. On my end, right? But no. By the time Ricky Reese received the ball, he already had uh, whoever that player was right on him. Number 15. It was Traore. So by the time Ricky Reese received that ball, he already had Traore on his back and making that dispossession, right? So they lose the ball. RGV loses the ball in right there. They recuperate the ball really quickly. I know I showed the play to my dad, and it's like, why is he turning inside and not outside? It's a lot of questions, right? It's a lot of questions that I can't tell you why he did this or why he did that because I never played, you know. So it might have been a good idea. It's his style, more than likely, trying to go through the middle. But it's the high pressure. I think in this case, it's a lot more the kudos to Traore for coming up quickly and by surprise to Ricky. He wasn't. To me, it felt I could see that he wasn't expecting Traore to come up so high, right?
Yep.
So San Antonio recovers the ball, and Loera makes that run through the middle, in between Jesus Vasquez and Daniel Luis. Calls for, he's making this, gesture. Hey, I want a through ball right over there, right? Daniel Luis can see this. He's got Loera in front of him. And instead of trying to run as fast as he can to try to intercept or try to get there before the ball reaches Loera and, do something, right? To make him uncomfortable, not receive the ball comfortably, anything. He doesn't, he reacts late.
Yep.
And, it's a clear dribble to inside the box. Colin Miller gets the initial save. The rebound lands on Loera. And once again, Daniel Luis is slow to react to try to kick the ball away. The ball luckily lands. It was luck as well from Loera in that rebound. And it was just a simple tap in for that second goal of San Antonio. It's frustrating. And I think Wilmer Cabrera was fed up and frustrated from the performance by Daniel Luis because right before the second half started, he already had him substituted for Wehab Agwe. And when Wilmer Cabrera makes early substitutions, is because you either got injured or you seriously messed up.
Yep.
And deserve to be benched.
Yep, for sure. But maybe that turned the game as well. Because not only that, but then RGVFC, in my opinion, looked dangerous. They looked like, who was it? But it was mainly, SAFC. It looked like they were now on the back foot, kind of playing from behind, even though they were up 2-1, which is understandable sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And RGVFC were able to try and make headway and try to get that tying goal, which was huge. They were taking those strides to try and get that equalizer, getting shots up on target and things of that nature. So it was very interesting from that point of view to see that at least they didn't feel out of it and they felt like they could tie it up.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at that point, like you mentioned, San Antonio is going to hold back, let RGV, time was in San Antonio's favor. So as the time ran out, RGV was going to get desperate. And they continue to push RGV out to the wings, try to get some crosses in here and there, try to get some danger. RGV had a couple of shots in the second half. You know, they had a lot more shots than San Antonio. San Antonio only had one, and it was a blocked shot in the second half. But it just, you know, you had a couple of shots on target that were saved by Bonilla. You had some shots off target. You had a lot of blocked shots because everybody was just kind of bunched in inside that box. You know, for San Antonio FC, there really wasn't a lot of space to work with and get some clear shots on goal. And at the end of the day, it just keeps on working for San Antonio. And they were able to get away with a 2-1 win. And now we're 4 games in, and we only have 3 points out of 12 possible. Luckily, though, RGV has a full week and a half to recover. They have a bye week next weekend. They will go and they will play their debut in the Open Cup against North Carolina SC, and we will talk about that game next week. But this is the time where hopefully RGV recovers their injured players, because with what we have right now, it's not enough. It's not enough to be competitive because of fatigue, because of this, because of that, or some players just aren't working, you know, for Wilmer Cabrera. I don't know what your evaluation is. Now it's not I don't think it's bad enough to, you know, kind of raise the alarms, but it's getting to the point of, you know, there's a lot of questions that hopefully will be answered. There's still a lot of chemistry that they've got to develop because it's such a new team. But I do know that the fans, especially the more casual fans, they don't have the patience. I've already seen a couple of people on social media, especially on Facebook, you know, putting, "Oh, I'm selling my season ticket to anybody that wants them. I'm done with this team." Obviously, it's kind of dumb, but you know, at the end, it's his money, it's his or her money, so I can't tell them what to do with it. But this is going to be a long process, you know, to get this team back to where it was and even more, you know. But the biggest question, and we talked about it in the beginning of this episode, is the injuries. When are they getting back? Why have they been so many injuries? What can be improved on their end to minimize any more injuries in the future that'll further reduce our roster depth, especially when now you've got the Open Cup, you know, as an extra tournament that the Toros need to participate in.
Yep, it's going to be. Yeah, don't sound the alarm yet, even though it's starting to be worrying. Like, you know, there's a small beep that says something needs to happen. Something positive needs to happen for RGVFC. Maybe it's going to be a win against North Carolina SC, like you said. Something of that sense. Wilmer Cabrera needs to kind of go back to the drawing board in a sense, especially with the team that he's got right now, and to make sure that everything possible can go right, because it's just too much. Go back to the drawing board with your trainers, because apparently something's wrong there. I'm sorry, but in the end, not you should not have more than 2 injuries pre-freaking season. It's stupid that there were more than that. It's weird that we have so many issues with whether or not visas or something strange like that, where we can't get depth. Now we don't have any depth, and we're now frustrated about the team because of that sense that you can't start your regular starters on a daily basis, because if you do, they're going to get tired so quickly. So then that becomes an issue. And then the attack has been nowhere to be seen. Again, I go back to talking to my friend week 1, spending half the time in the press box and half the time outside, because that's what I like to do a lot, especially when I know somebody in the stands, because it's cool. It's cool to see it from up in the press box, and it's cool to see it from the crowd perspective, because it gives you a little sense of what's the crowd reaction like, how are they experiencing the game, and what can you tell from that section. So either way, that's just what I like to do. Point being, we just we went defensively when we could have gone with an insane attack mentality from the start. When Wickerberg, yes, he knows what he's doing, but at that same time, now it's starting to figure out, well, you don't have your players that you want. Can you get more, or what are you going to do? It's just very, very frustrating at this stage now.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to put it into weather terms, like we're right now under a hurricane watch or a tropical storm watch, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, where it's the conditions are favorable in the future for something to be brewing up. We're not at a hurricane warning just yet, but if things continue to, to not be fixed, we're heading there, right? We're
Yep.
still early enough to fix these issues, to find out what works, what doesn't work, recover the players that are injured, make sure that the ones that have not been injured don't over fatigue themselves to the point where they break and get all these injuries as well. Which I'm surprised we didn't have any more injuries uh, due to this, all of this fatigue from these last couple of games, you know. But this week and a half is a good opportunity to recover them and kind of build up for the rest of the season. But I think it also goes to show that I think maybe we should not have hoarded too many defensive players,
Oh,
Be,
for sure.
but um, we'll see what happens, in the rest of the games. Now,
Mm-hmm.
real quickly, I don't know if y'all saw on social media, but there was a situation at the stadium where it looks like there was some issues with the Stampede and security, and they in protest the Stampede decided to um, leave the stadium, before the game ended. Um, Today, I'm not here to make a decision on who's right and who's wrong. What I'm mostly interested is making sure that the facts are in public, because I don't think it's good to be making, any kind of, assumptions over a couple of social media posts. We don't know 100% what the truth is, So that's why I wasn't there at the stadium. Jacob wasn't there at the stadium. So we can't say, oh, this is exactly what happened, right? But I do want to set the record straight, to make sure that these kind of situations don't happen again. So, situation is obviously the Stampede were making some chants. Wasn't the P words chant? Don't worry, guys. It wasn't that. It wasn't homophobic chants. None of that. We do know that the Stampede really police those kind of actions within the supporters group. But basically, um, it was a Spanish chant that, when you translate it to English, it says San Antonio can eat it.
Oh yeah, yeah,
You
that one,
know,
yes. I
right?
I know exactly what they were saying then. Yeah.
So as the game went on, and in the second half they repeated the chant. According to multiple people that were there in the section, uh, police come up to the stadium, single out two members of the Stampede, and proceed to tell them that they're going to be escorting them away outside of the stadium because of vulgar language, right? So the issue began to escalate, because they're like, well, what are we doing? What are we doing wrong? And the people that were singled out weren't necessarily the ones that were, making these or you could, in other words, you couldn't know for sure exactly who was the one that made that were chanting, right? So if it was loud, probably most of the members were chanting it, right? So are you gonna expel all members? Like, no, right? My biggest question is, from based on this, is isn't there a procedure to de-escalate the situation, try to figure out what happened, a warning system to say, okay,
Yep.
hey guys, you guys are kind of getting carried away with the language, just tone it down, blah 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 blah. Okay, now if it's the second and third time and you still keep doing that, okay, then yes, if you know for sure who it is, well, kick him out of the stadium, right? But the police went, from 0 to 100 really really quick, right? So um so it caught the attention of social media. Um, like I mentioned with, the Orange County fans, it's not good to, in my eyes, it's not good to make posts on social media at the heat of the moment, because you don't control what you post. And it could be something, that you're going to end up regretting, right? Just like in their case, Andy King, ended up regretting what he posted, So in the end, it's just from what I've heard, the FO are taking matters into their hands, trying to make sure what happened, make sure it doesn't happen again, and hopefully it doesn't repeat. Um, and I know it's very difficult. Like I mentioned, Victoria, we've already gotten into these situations with, what happened in California. Somebody made at the LA Galaxy 2 game, somebody made another accusation, saying that it happened again, and then now you've got this at home, and it's like, guys, help us out here, right? But I think what I'm trying to say is, let's get the facts straight. Let's not make any assumptions. Let's not make any accusations. Let the people involved,
Put it
work.
out on their own. Yep.
Exactly. I'm not sure what you think, Jacob, about the situation, or if you heard anything else.
Yeah, I haven't heard much besides what's on Twitter and what you just said right there. I know I did make a statement. I'm saying, yeah, I'm not going to say anything until, we know more of the facts, which is kind of what I said with the OCSC thing. But that's also what I brought up. I'm like, it could be, situations like that. And that's why things got so escalated, because the FO doesn't want another situation like OCSC. That's understandable, but of course, yes, there could be a whole system thing where you're supposed to get a warning. I've seen high school basketball fans and football fans and even soccer fans be much much worse. And again,
Yeah.
watching, and I've watched some of the broadcasts back, and when before they stopped chanting and when they stopped chanting, it didn't nothing sounded bad, and you can't single out a single person even from there. So
Hmm.
that's another thing. It's just, yeah, a lot of that situation from what I've heard did not sound the best, and hopefully it all gets sorted out. Hopefully, but yeah, hopefully they can become friends from this. FO and Stampede can get along again, and
Yeah. I
everything
just
can
don't want. I just
be
don't want to.
settled.
I just don't want any,
Hmm.
ill vibes between the front office
Exactly.
and the Stampede, and the
Yeah.
Stampede and the front office and security.
Hmm.
Let them work. Let them work it out. I know a lot of people were questioning, what happened to Stampede? Why did they leave?
Hmm.
That's pretty much what happened. It was a miscommunication. It was some sort of discord between security and the Stampede. The Stampede, just weren't in agreement with how the security treated the situation. Decided to
Hmm.
protest in the middle of the game by leaving the stadium. You
Yep.
know, we, I mean, as much as we can say if we agree or we disagree, it's their decision. We respect it.
Exactly. Hmm.
All we care about is making sure that this thing is talked over, that both sides get their story,
Hmm.
story set, get into a mutual agreement, and
Hmm.
how to make this better for not only for the Stampede
Yeah.
but also for the rest of the fans. So that's what needs to be taken out of the situation, and to help both sides, move on and continue growing their relationship rather than, having some sort of, breaking of relationship between SG and the fans. Because at the end of the day, I think the people that are least guilty of the situation are the players and the coaching staff. But let's get this worked out and continue working on together. Let the topics in hand be the players and what's going on the field, not what's happening off of the field. I know it's 3 episodes already that if off the field things have kind of reached the podcast. Let's hope it's the last time for the season. But
I agree.
But guys, that's going to be it for today because we've got to go watch the U.S. men's national team against Costa Rica. We've got the qualifiers right now. So thank you guys for listening to this episode. If y'all liked it, be sure to share it. Be sure to give us your rating on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, any podcasting platform. Give us your sincere rating. What can we improve? What do you like about it? And be sure to recommend us to it with all of your friends and family. Let's grow this audience so we can know more about the Toros and grow this community of Toros fans. Follow us on all of our social media at Down in the RGV on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and on TikTok. And you can follow me, Edson Ochoa, at eochoa_8 on Instagram and on Twitter. And Jacob, where can they find you?
Find me, Jake Young 456 on Twitter. The Overreacted Gamer on Twitch, as well as the Overreacted Gamer on YouTube. Check out the last video was the vlog of this trip, of the Coda trip to be exact, if you want to check that out. And what else am I missing? Oh yeah, the Overreacted Gamer on TikTok as well. So new content almost every week, just like this show. So keep a lookout.
Well, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. We'll see you all next week for another episode of the Down in the Valley podcast. Take care.